3 years ago, when Stimson's closed on the coast of Maine, it was the last sardine canning factory in the United States. None of the sardines we eat in the United States are canned in Maine anymore, or in the United States. And most of our processing is somewhere else. This is a big problem, and it's a problem of regional economics and incomes as well. So here we go. Maine produces a humongous amount of lumber and timber. We send it out because we don't process it unless it's toilet paper. We're big on toilet paper. And we're also big on coated papers and stuff like that. We send it to North Carolina. North Carolina then sends it to South Korea. South Korea makes it into a cabinet, a lovely cabinet, Amish style, by the way, because that's what we like. And then they send it back to North Carolina. North Carolina then sells it back to Maine. It was a Maine product. Every step of the way when it leaves Maine, every step of the way is a value-added step. That means money is leaking out of the Maine economy, and we buy it back. That's pretty much, with the exception of potatoes and wild blueberries, that's pretty much the issue. Maybe lobsters as well, of course, and mussels, blue mussels. The situation in Prince Edward Island. Oftentimes what you produce leaves the province and then you buy it back from someone else, but the value was all added. In the food strategies for New England, we're trying to recapture processing with green and environmentally sustainable methods of doing that. And it happens in all sorts of interesting ways. We now have we now have 26 artisanal cheesemakers in the state. That may not sound a lot, but a lot of that stuff was just, milk was thrown away before. And now we make terrific artisanal cheeses. And we're trying to figure out all sorts of ways to do more with the products we have here, have in the state of Maine. Prince Edward Island, if it's to have a more sustainable agriculture, is going to have to do something similar. Let me try to close with just a couple of comments. Again, I'd really like you to focus on this because it's the way we've approached things and we think it makes sense. Again, if this were a pure discussion on sustainable agriculture, all I'd talk about would be this. But I'm not getting close to solving the problem. I'm not even getting close to even talking about sustainable agriculture or food, or really a food system which works for people, where there's some social justice as well as productivity. One needs to talk about production and harvesting and methods of harvesting and the processing center, because we don't cut wheat and put it in our mouths. It goes to some place in Battle Creek, Michigan, where it gets turned into Cocoa Puffs, or Captain whatever his name is, or one silly cereal or another. But that's the processing sector. When you grow a potato here and it gets turned into chips or something like that, that's processing. And you can't talk about a sustainable agricultural system without talking about, can you make that environmentally sensitive, environmentally appropriate as well? And then there's the whole thing of distribution, both wholesale and retail as well. And how do you do that? And really, how do you take care of all of those kids and all of those families in this province who live in food insecure homes? And remember that hungry kids are not learners. Before I came to Southern Maine, I was the Associate Director of the Agricultural Experiment Station at Rutgers University for New Jersey. And I founded the Blaustein School of Planning, Public Health, and Public Policy at Rutgers. And because we had the policy school, I got active in the state capital of Trenton, New Jersey. Trenton is the capital of the second wealthiest state in the United States. A city of 56,000, I became the chairman of the Trenton Economic Development Corporation, a nonprofit. 56,000 people, the majority of which African American and Latino. The capital of the second wealthiest state in the United States did not have a single supermarket. Not a single supermarket. Women had to line up, it was usually women, to get on the buses to go out to the suburbs in Lawrence Township, in Princeton, so forth and so on. Go to the vast supermarkets there, and come home with bundles again on the buses and don't go back. For 4 years, I struggled to get one lousy supermarket in the capital city of the second wealthiest state in the United States. Finally, we got Price Chopper there. And let me tell you, no one messes with the building. There's no graffiti. No one steals the wagons. People revere that place because finally they can get some fresh fruit and vegetables. They can get some decent meat. We work with the Amish community in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, to have farmers markets and to introduce consumers to the quality meats and sausages and other things that they produce. They had never seen Amish people before, and they absolutely knew these were Orthodox Jews. They dressed in black and they had beards, and they just didn't know their neighbors across the river. And as one who grew up with kosher food, I knew they weren't Orthodox Jews, but that's another story altogether. It was just stunning to see what one supermarket could do. By the way, the governor of the state of New Jersey doesn't even live in the state capital. He or she will live in Princeton, New Jersey, and be chauffeured in sort of every day in a nice big Cadillac. And when the state workers flee, they literally flee the city, their capital of the second wealthiest state. And we don't know how to handle that problem. They have food, nothing but food deserts, and they finally have one supermarket. And you know what? Because they're doing very well, I understand 3 new supermarkets are opening up in different areas because they know there was success and they want a piece of the action. So let me just leave you again with this notion that I didn't want to talk just about, I've got all sorts of stuff on range management and all sorts of stuff on various aspects of agriculture. But the point is, if we want to talk about sustainable agriculture, we need to talk about the whole system. We can't have a sustainable food system just worrying about sustainable production on the farm or from the sea, though that is perhaps the first and most vital element in the entire system. We've got to talk about consumer demand. We've got to start looking at food for what it really is and not cosmetically, and buy high quality things. And one of the great pleasures that we have now, all over Maine, the grocers are telling us which farm the grapes came from, which farm the peaches came from, which farm, because people want to know where the food is produced, who produces it, how it's produced. Because more and more there is this sense that what we put in our bodies is actually critical. So let me close it there and open it up for comments and then some discussion later. Thanks very much. My wife's not clapping, it's a bad sign.
Mark, thank you very much for a provocative and a kind of holistic view of the challenges involved in sustainability in agriculture and supply of food. It's also the first time in my history of being involved with the forums that anyone has made Playboy into a metaphor for food production. So that in itself is a first.
That's what happens when you let Donald Trump go for president.
Did you, by any chance, take away
Did I?
Introductory notes from Mr. Cudmore or Barrycliff? Not that Barry particularly
I'm sorry.
needs an introduction. Oh, but Harry Bagwell. Harry, by the way, I should have given him a shout out at the beginning. Harry is, of course, the author of our panel and has done so much work over the last 2 or 3 years, bringing back this very important thing that we do at the IIS, which is to open a dialogue. probably to most of the audience, he is a farmer in the best meaning of the word farmer. Potatoes, soybeans, and grains. He lives in Brackley Beach, a Nuffield scholar and a member of the Atlantic Agriculture Hall of Fame, which I didn't know, but I have seen you perform before in forums of this kind, and I do have to say on a personal note that you have been inspirational to me in my understanding of how to farm in a responsible way. So he, in fact, is a proponent of farm sustainability, moving from a production of the commodity sort of model to branding of products, reconnecting consumers and producers. And I think we're going to find when Mark talks about his views and what he does, there's a synchronicity with some of the things that we've heard from Mark. By the way, other Mark, I'll give you a copy of this, Mark. But Barry, I'm going to give you the floor, and please, get the questions written down, get them launched in your head, because we'll have the Q&A after. Thank you.
I wasn't going to tell this story, and it's going to bite into my 8 or 9 minutes, but there's a gentleman in Charlottetown. His name is Zebulon. He's a Burundi refugee. He and his wife Justine and their 5 children moved here about a year ago. Anyway, in a sort of a typical sense of an island scene with your backyard, you'd like to have grass in it, right? And you'd have a lawnmower or a weed eater or something like that. But I thought Zebulon was very unique in that he made his whole backyard into a garden. And he had at least 30 tomato plants, and he interspersed other crops amongst them. So Zebulon, in his own way, is meeting the needs of his family and meeting my needs as well, because we dropped by to see him yesterday, and he still had fresh tomatoes. And it's what, November 14th. So that's my Zebulon story. So take it for what it's worth. He's not going to need a lawnmower. He put a chair in the corner of his garden to watch it grow. But he's in not need of grass. Just wanted to comment on a couple of things that you said, Mark, Professor Mark, Dr. Mark. And sustainability came up. And the first time I heard the 3 pillars of sustainability was from John Eichart. And I'm sure you would be a friend of John Eichart. I'm a friend of John Eichard's as well, because I went to visit him in his house, at his home a couple of times. And about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, he'd take me outside, give me a beer, and give me a lecture for about 45 minutes. That was John's way of talking about sustainability. CSAs. I found a very unique CSA in Copenhagen where they're servicing 15,000 families. So it was quite an amazing story of CSA. On food security, an organization that Colleen and I are involved with called Farmers Helping Farmers. We're working with groups in Kenya, and there's tension between schools here and schools in Kenya. And we find where those students are getting 2 nourishing meals a day, both for breakfast and lunch. Significant amount of improvement in grades, etc. in that school. So realizing how important food is for good learning. I don't think I'm waiting at my own time, Mark, so I don't want to do that too much. Just a note on Nuffield scholarships. Does anybody here have an MG? Had an MG card? Familiar with MG card? You have an MG card, great. So Lord Nuffield was William Morris. He built the Morris cars. The MG stood for Morris's Garage, which you probably knew anyway. And in his day, he was the 3rd largest producer of automobiles in the world. He had no family. He was a philanthropist. He was very wealthy. But he decided he wanted British farmers after the war to go somewhere else and learn something and take it back to England so that they could get out of food stamps and be self-sustaining in food as much as they could be. Because if you're aware, England after the war was a tough place to grow up and have balanced food. So William Morris, in his generosity, set up the Nuffield Scholarship Program. I was very fortunate to represent Canada in that scholarship program. I've had a chance to travel to various countries and look at an interest of mine in reconnecting producers and consumers and moving from commodities to products. I saw an interesting bumper sticker. I think it was in Maine, actually. And the sticker said, "Who's your farmer?" And I thought, yeah, you'd ask the question, who's your plumber? Or who's your electrician? Or maybe who's your doctor? Or who's your dentist? But that really kicked into me that we should know who our farmer is. And I think probably that's one of the reasons why the big connect with farmers market at the present time, among other things. Now, just a word or two about PEI. And I think PEI is small, obviously, but it was created for food production. And I guess my question to you and to me is, how do we keep it that way? Are we going to have a province that is broken up into many 10-acre plots for those people that can afford the housing that would go on those plots and that could afford to buy the plots in the first place? I have a family farm in Brackley Beach. I have 4 kids. They're all off PEI. My wish and my desire of most days is that they would come back to PEI. Come back first to PEI and then maybe consider agriculture. Now, they could consider agriculture even at mid-age, because I hope to hang around for a little while yet. I think there's a lot of success stories. Mark's a success story. People producing tulips in PEI, I think that's a success story. Mussel production in PEI is a success story. There's many young people. Mark, you're still a young person. There are many young people creating success stories in PEI. And I think there were two golden ages on PEI. Maybe they were not sustainable, but in their own way, they were boom times. Fox ranching was one of them, in my opinion, and the other was the era of shipbuilding. Tremendous activity and growth at that time. Now, whether those were for needs or wants, you can decide for yourself. So I spent 10 years in a branding initiative, and Colleen was on that branding initiative with me. She got paid more than I did because I was on the board. I hope you got paid. Yes. I'm sure you got paid. So we developed the brand, and we took the humble potato as a product to the market. I really think there's possibilities for branding to differentiate us from others. In our study about brands, we determined there's 3 broad areas of brands. There's the product brand, like there's toothpaste, there's detergents, there's yogurt, there's any number of other things. And I don't know, I was going to go in before the meeting today and count the number of possibilities one would have in buying toothpaste. But I dare say there would be at least 50, maybe 60. I don't know. There's a lot of possibilities. Yogurt's another one. Like back in the day, you could buy plain yogurt and that was about it. But I'm sure the same thing with yogurt. There's about 3, 4, 5, 15 dozen possibilities with yogurt. Maybe Tide has looked after the product-based detergent area, but anyway. The first branded product, at least in the line of soaps, was Sunlight Soap back in 1884. And why was it branded? Well, the owners of the soap factory decided it was best to cut the soap into blocks so it would be more manageable in the house. And they also put a wrapping around it. And they put their brand on it called Sunlight Soap. And the great thing about that Sunlight Soap, it was always a consistent quality. I understand before 1884, unless there's somebody older here that was here before 1884, could verify that soap previous to 1884 was not always the same consistency or quality. But Sunlight Soap, 1884 and on, was the soap to buy because it was consistent quality. The next, just to talk briefly, there's another brand, big area, I guess if you want to call it, personality-based. Like the Juan Valdez's of the world with his coffee, Martha Stewart with whatever Martha has, Paul Newman's salad dressing. Paul is dead now, isn't he? Passed? He is. So it's hard to have a viable brand after you pass, for the most part, I think. And then there's the Marlboro Man, and I'm not sure how many Marlboro Men we've got gone through as they advertise for that cigarette. So I think the last guy, he passed as well. From lung cancer. Strange. And of course there's Pepsi. Pepsi's always reinventing themselves. They have to have the most recent celebrity to promote their brand. Now, where we need to be, in my opinion, and these are my own thoughts, my own beliefs, not necessarily yours, we need to be at a values-based brand where we connect the product to the consumer at an emotional level. Think about Tim's Coffee. How many people, I'm not a big coffee drinker, but anyway, I observe many people coming into Tim's early in the morning. In fact, they line up and they're hugging their coffee close to them, and it gives them hope for the day. It gives them real hope. And that's a good thing. It's good to have hope. Now what about Coke? Well, it was in 1985 or 87 we introduced that new Coke. And it didn't last very long because people were so upset. How could you do such a thing to my Coke? It's that personal to me. And I understand there were people hoarding Coke because they didn't want to run out of Coke. It was that significant to them. And the Coca-Cola top brass decided we made a fatal mistake, but we can fix it. We'll call it Classic Coke, and you can have your real Coke back again. Coke was started out in 1884, I think, and through the years to 2016, the motto today is taste the feeling versus quenching your thirst. It's not about quenching your thirst, it's about having a Coke experience. So let's extrapolate this to island producers and how they might relate to consumers at an emotional level. When you think about the values of islanders, now not all islanders are like this, Mark, but quite a few of us are. So we're warm and hospitable. You've probably seen that, yeah. So we take pride in our work. For the most part, we're hardworking and honest. We have traditional values, a strong sense of family, place, and community. And if we were to make a proposition to potential buyers, we would say something like this. For generations, islanders have been trusted to produce and harvest food that nurtures the body and soul. So it's not only about sustenance, but it's more, it's on an emotional level as well. And our tagline was, growing well is a way of life. We tied into very strongly what John Eicher was saying about sustainability, the 3 pillars, environmentally sound, socially responsible, and economically viable. So we had a brand in place. It took us 2 or 3 years to develop this brand. It was rather unique in that we developed the brand before we had a problem. Backwards. So we have a brand. What are we going to do with it? Second part of our task was go to market with a product. So we looked at around PEI. We grow quite a few potatoes, still grow quite a few potatoes in PEI. So the humble potato, what could we do with it? So we thought, a lot of varieties of potatoes grown in PEI. About 98, maybe more now. Some are not in big quantities. But we didn't find one potato that was good for all cooking occasions at every time of the year. And we define cooking occasions as baking, boiling, mashing, and roasting. So we thought about our good friends in Toronto who buy PEI potatoes fairly regularly. And we thought, well, they don't know much about potatoes up there, but they want to have a good experience with their potatoes. So let's make it easy for them to buy their potatoes. So this is what we did. We, with the Culinary Institute, established the best potato for each of those cooking occasions at any given time of the year. So we thought we can do better than that. Let's create potato cabinets. Let's make those cabinets refrigerated so the potatoes don't get green in the cabinets. So that's what we did, and we defined 4 drawers, baking, boiling, mashing, and roasting. So we actually gave the consumer peace of mind. So all they needed to know, Saturday night, I'm having special friends in, I'm going to do baking potatoes. I will go to the baking drawer. I will choose 16 baking potatoes because I'm having 12 people in. Some will want more than 1. And we'll have the proper recipes there for them. We have the bags there for them with the recipes. They choose how many pounds they want because they're all in bulk. It gave peace of mind to potato burners. It's a good thing. And I knew people got up when we, how much time do I have?
I left my clock up there. I would say you have 3 minutes.
3 minutes, that's enough. Good. So we knew people got the concept when we launched at the Rural Winter Fair. Ever been to the Rural Winter Fair before? But either probably there. Anyway, we knew people got it when we explained to one person how the program worked, and they explained it to the people with them. So we launched the program, and at its peak, we were responsible. The name of the branding company was Food Trust, Prince Edward Island. At its peak, we were responsible for, this program was responsible for 25% of all the potato purchases in A&P Dominion stores, which we had a unique relationship with, and it was 50% of their profits were in that category. So I'm going to just close on this. Maybe I can close a little ahead of time. Lessons learned. Got to be lessons learned. And these are my observations. They may or may not be correct, but they're correct to me. Branding and product development is expensive and takes time to get to the market. And it always takes longer to get to the market than you expect. But you should take the time to do it right. So in our case, we started out with no recipe and no product. It was like baking a cake with no ingredients and no recipe. So we had to develop a recipe, and then we had to find the ingredients. We needed to be a 364-day supplier because I think they took Christmas off. We do not abuse the brand, and we need to maintain brand standards. They're paramount. We need to respect our consumer. Shorter value chains are best, and this was a very short value chain, 3 or 4 from producer through to consumer. And brand, this is important too, brand products must be difficult for others to replicate. If you're successful in the marketplace, people will at least try to duplicate you and may try to replicate you. There must be a high level of trust. Our company was called Food Trust. We found out that the retailer can be a good guy, that co-branding can work if there is willingness by all parties. Abuse the brand at your own peril. Just a comment about innovators and early adapters. Early adapters, it's less risk. You've seen the process. You can pick and choose what works and hopefully be successful. Innovators, which we were, there's a high level of risk, a high level of failure. Fortunately for us, we were successful. We observed that people will pay for information if it's helpful. This, from my own perspective, my own farmer, it's much better to be in the wants business than in the needs business. I would say if you go to most craft stores, and I'm not knocking craft stores, they're the greatest thing. But most of the things at a craft store you don't need, but you buy them because you want them and you pay a premium for them. You should always remember that. And finally, advertising/branding is based on one thing. And in my opinion, it's based on happiness. So that's my preamble, my amble. If you want to know the Food Trust story, there was a book written, it's called Creating Food Futures, Trade Ethics and the Environment. If you Google it, you can find it, and there's one chapter devoted to Food Trust there. This I got on my desk just last week. It's called Atlantic Business. I'll close with this note. It's publisher's note. The last paragraph, publisher Schubert Hutton, and he says this: they say that necessity is the mother of invention, and that's what we do here in the Maritimes. Reinventing ourselves in order to thrive. Our economy, like the weather, probably the same kind of weather in Maine. Our economy, like the weather, can change in a dime. All we have to do in the meantime is hold on. The sun will shine again. I thank you.
Thank you, Barry. We're now going to call Mark Bernard to the front. Mark, despite his obvious youth, is a veteran farmer. He runs an organic farm with his wife. Freetown is your wife? But his family has been on this farm for generations. 4 generations, in fact. They began in potato production, and Mark has moved away from potato production. He's moved to a Barnyard Organic, that's in fact the name of this farm, to bring the farm back to its original state as a sustainable mixed farm, using traditional methods combined with the technologies of our time. So, Mark, if you'd like to come up, I'll see if I can get the slideshow up for you.
Thank you for having me as a panelist here tonight. So just I prepared something here and then commented a little bit on Mark has spoken on tonight. So Sally and I, along with Lucy, Wilson, Thane, and Saul, operate Barnyard Organics in Freetown. Organic grains and soybean production is the main revenue on the farm. And some of that grain is used to make feed for our livestock that we have on the farm. We raise meat chickens and laying hens on pasture, moving multiple shelters every day. These are sold through CSA community-supported agriculture that we deliver to about 60 members split between Summerside and Charlottetown. We operate a provincially inspected chicken abattoir on the farm, and we also rent the chickens. We have been part of the Rent the Chicken program where we introduce people to chickens. So we rent them laying hens for the summer, and then we take them back. So there's no risk, less risk. And in addition to using the grain for our chickens, we produce and sell a certified organic feed for livestock farmers throughout maritime provinces. Our newly branded line is known as East Coast Organic Feed Mill. Our farm is very diverse and captures some of the niche markets along the value chain to allow our organic livestock sector to be supported here in the Maritimes and locally produced grains, with locally produced grains. The farm is 500 acres and we operate on a 5-year rotation, using clovers as our fertility source. Some of the grains used is sold wholesale to Spearville Flour Mill or into Ontario or other livestock markets. On starting the farm 10 years ago, we seen an opportunity in organics and a premium price at the retail end. We completed a business plan and we were strictly business. We still have business mentality today, but we have a whole lot of passion for the industry and the way that we farm. And like Mark had spoke earlier, he had said it's a systems approach, and that's what we truly believe on our farm, is that everything is a systems, everything feeds off one another. And farming 500 acres to some might not seem to be much, but we feel that we wanted to strive at getting better at what we do rather than large and in the acreage and the livestock numbers. So we feel that it'd be better to have 10 farms raising 1,000 birds than it would be to have one farm raising 10,000 birds. And I think we need to grow more farmers than more farmers. Some of the challenges that we face, and Mark has mentioned a couple of them through his the food systems handout that he has given here. But marketing is definitely one. And we're a large enough scale that we have to sell some wholesale and then sell some direct. So organizing and shipping loads of beans or grain to Ontario is a challenge. And then also the challenge of direct marketing to the end consumer is definitely a challenge for the farmer end, because let's face it, we're farmers, not necessarily great marketers. So it takes another a skill set to be able to produce the food and then switch gears and then be a retail marketer to the end consumer as well. And yeah, so then just to briefly talk on some of the things that I've heard here tonight, and I apologize that this is not necessarily my learning skill to quickly, rhetorically think about some of these things, but it was a real nice talk that you said, and I like this here diagram that you sent out. And I question about you got all the topics there, but I wonder whether number 1 is in the right place. In my system and the way that the consumer changes and the consumer is, I wonder whether number 6 should be 1, and we should be listening to the consumer more and developing things, not because we can do it in a technology-based way and get it there. And like you had mentioned, that today's system is a maximized production system, that we always look at maximizing everything, that we need, everything comes back to that systems approach, that we need to look at what that maximum production affects, and it always will affect something, whether it will be soil quality or overloading fertility sources in those heavy livestock areas compared to where we don't have those areas of food drink or wherever. And then the stewardship and the fair trade systems. When we're producing food and we're completing this circle as farmers, a lot of the farmers get detached and don't realize that the difference between a wholesale and a retail, that if I'm selling a truckload, that's wholesale.